Guys, what is going on? My people, welcome to Modern Leadership. See things differently. Let me see if we're live. We're live. What is going on? This is Saturday Night Live. Hey guys, what's going on? We're gonna wait a couple minutes while you guys are like joining up. But first, I want to just say that I appreciate everybody who's here watching the recording. Anybody who's here making it live. We are going to be diving into something that is like really near and dear to our hearts right now. We're going to share like the 10 most incredibly, most powerful, most necessary, most absolutely you need to know these things before you leave your job. And what I mean by that is like, yes, if like you're going to leave your job this next year, you need to know these things. But like literally, if you're planning on leaving your job in 5 or 10 years, you absolutely need to know these things, whether or not you're using a business to get you there. And the reason why I say that is because like these things were things that, number one, is when we went through it the first time, which Teresa will talk about in a minute, about 6 years ago. Was it 6 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay, so about 6 years ago when she left her job, we didn't have any idea about any of these things. And now fast forward to me leaving my career in February, meaning that we're both going to be full-time business owners from home, coaches, awesome stuff. We've also, like, not only are we going to re-experience some of that stuff, but we also like had to connect with a lot of like not only mentors but accountants, but people who understand what it's like to go from a W-2 to not having a W-2 anymore. So that's why we wanted to put this together, because we have so many people who are reaching out to us going, oh my God, like you're leaving your job. Like, aren't you nervous? Like how do you prepare for something like that? Like, and I know like right now, me, by the way, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Marc Hildebrand, and my full-time job is the police sergeant from LAPD. I've been there for 20 years. And so I have a lot of people in the police field who are like, please help me get out of here. I want to leave this job. I want to go somewhere else. And I also know a lot of people who have bosses and just work for places that they don't want to work in. And how we did it is we started and created a business, and we grew it and we grew it. And all those things are powerful. And we're not going to necessarily talk about the ideas of growing a business, but what we're going to talk about is like when you have this thought, maybe if it's in the back of your mind and you're like thinking, I want to be prepared so that I can leave my job and feel comfortable, feel secure. And I'm going to say comfortable, but really you're never going to feel comfortable, right? But really feel more secure and like be prepared for when you do, that the stuff doesn't hit the fan. And let me just start off with this. Like the best or the worst thing that you can do is like try to pretend like everything's going to work out and not actually go down the path of like, okay, what is going to be the backup plan? What are we going to do here? What are we going to put in place? And that's really what we're going to talk about here today. So let me just jump in real quick. I know I kind of got started a little bit, and I'm going to pass it over to my wife in a second. But like I said, I have been a police officer for 20 years. As a matter of fact, I kind of like, ever since I grew up, like that was like my whole thing. I worked my entire life to be a police officer. And it's crazy, now that I hit 45, I'm going to be able to retire at 45 and leave the police career. Now, the one caveat to that is there's 5 years there where I don't get paid from the police department. I can't get paid and pull a pension because I'm not 50. So for 5 years, I have to make sure that I am secure and my family's secure, because we do this full time now. My wife left her corporate job. She'll talk to you a little bit about that. But really, it's just this feeling of, it's a little bit like stressful, let's just say, making sure that we have all of our stuff in a row. And that's why we've gone out, we've spoken to experts. We've like had our own personal experience 6 years ago, and we've like been around a lot of people who've done exactly what we're right about to do. And so much of the stuff like I've never heard before. Like nobody's ever sat down and gone, hey, you know what? Here's the 10 things you absolutely need to know before you leave your job. It's just kind of like, oh, you're going to leave your job? Okay, cool. Like, let us know how that goes. And really, we wanted to be that resource for people. So that's really why we wanted to put this together. Now, every single one of these 10 is super important, but it's like the totality of all of these. So as you go through this, definitely make sure you have a pen, highlighter. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be on YouTube. It's YouTube Live, but you're going to be able to go back and rewatch it. But make sure you take some notes, because here's the thing. Even if right now you don't have a plan to leave your job, I promise you, when you get to that point, you're going to be nervous. You're going to be like, I don't know what to do. Come back to here, because we are going to help bridge that gap for you, okay? So that's what I got for you in the beginning. Teresa, do you want to kind of like introduce yourself, tell them a little bit about your story, so that way they can get an idea of like what is it we're doing here?
Yes, of course. So thanks for having me here. I really love doing these lives with Marc, obviously, because we kind of get to spend more time together, not just here on video, but actually preparing for the videos as well. We get to chat and just, talk about how it's all going to work out and our points and everything. So it's all good, and
Mhm.
it's awesome to be able to do this now. So, just to take you back a little bit, like Mark said, I left my job about 6.5 years ago now, and it wasn't a thought in our minds like maybe 8 years ago, because I had a great job. I was actually working at UCLA Health, and I had an administrative role. I really loved my job. I ended up in the sustainability program. So, I was doing and contributing to like a really great cause. And everything changed once we had kids. And it wasn't the flip of a switch, but in our minds, it was like, this is different. Like we have children now, and all of the little things that just the daily task and everything, just they seem different because we had to, remove ourselves and go to another place to work. And it's like we're not seeing our kids, like, and we're not seeing each other. I mean, we were already experiencing that with Mark's career, but now that we had kids, it just felt different. And that thought popped up in our minds, and it was at the beginning, it was like, this is crazy. Like we cannot do this, because I was actually making six figures at my job. So it was a great opportunity, but once you plant that seed, it's
Mhm.
like you just can't get away from that. So we started working at it, and it really took something, an event that just got the ball rolling, and it was because I had missed an event that my daughter had at her school. So once we started going towards this goal, it really seemed like just everything started falling into place. However, like we're going to talk about in a few minutes, it's not always rainbows and unicorns. And we really want to emphasize those things because I think that a lot of times when you watch these videos and they tell you, hey, quit your side or quit your job so you can start a side hustle, and and they tell you all the great things that are going to happen. But we want to be real with you guys, and we also want to talk about like the reality of things that might happen so that you're prepared and still excited about it, because if that's one of your goals, you want to be excited, but we also want to prepare you for some of the things that you may not be thinking about.
I love that. I love that. And I want to get into the 10 things, but before we do, I'm not going to let you off the hook. I want you to tell that story. What was that story? What happened that kind of like put this thought in the back of both of our minds?
Yeah, it was crazy because so I had a long commute. We live in LA, and it would take me probably about 45 minutes to get home on a good day. So there was this event that my daughter was having. She was maybe 4 or 5 years old. She was in preschool, so she was probably four. And it was also kind of like a all day preschool. So I would go pick her up after work. And normally there would be events happening in the middle of the day, which I couldn't attend, right? And my son was already in kindergarten, so a lot of those events I had to miss because I couldn't take off work, or it was a lot of trouble that had to we had to jump through. So I was really excited about this because it was in the evening, and I remember that the traffic was especially heavy that night, and that evening. And I thought to myself, "Am I going to be late?" And I started to feel that like that weight of guilt, because I thought, "Man, like I'm gonna miss this. Like this was all perfect. Like I was gonna go after work." So I ended up getting there, but I was there late. And my daughter had kind of prepared me for this event. It was a Mother's Day event. And she said, "We have a surprise for you." And you look at that 4-year-old and you're like, oh my God, like she's so excited. And you can't wait to be part of that excitement. But I got there late, and I remember very, very vividly that she was sitting with one of her teachers. There was a couple teachers there, and she was sitting on the lap of one of her teachers. They had just finished like this really special thing they had created for the moms. It was a song that they were singing. I had missed the entire song. She was sitting there, and I could see in her eyes that she was excited to see me, but she was also like, "Oh, you missed the best part." It broke my heart. And I told my husband, and I was like, this is what happened. And I just couldn't, I held it together then, but like I just when I told him about it, it was just like, this is heartbreaking. Like I can't believe like I missed this. Like this sucks, you know? So I had like that huge guilt. And when I told him about it, I don't remember if it was that night that he said something. Maybe it was something that he thought about, but then he brought it up to me and said, "What if you actually left your job? Like, what if that didn't happen anymore? What if we could prevent that from happening next time because we pulled you from your job? Like, you have a long commute. We're starting our business and, we can really make this work. And maybe you don't have to go to work. Maybe you don't have to miss these events." So that's kind of what happened.
That is awesome. I mean, not awesome, but that was just like a really huge spark. And I actually remember like having that conversation with you, and it actually made me tear up a little bit because like you can just picture that kind of like happening, right? And I think like even as I think back to that now, like we were coaching ourselves through that, right? Because we could have
Mhm.
gotten upset at the traffic, we could have gotten upset at your work, we could have gotten in pointed fingers everywhere else, but instead we were like, okay, what can we do about this, right? What can we
Mhm.
do about this? And that was, we were building our business, but we weren't building it with the kind of like desire to like really get this thing to take off. Like, and I think that like sometimes people have those incidents in their life that like totally propels them and it gets them to feel like I'm going to be unstoppable. I don't care what happens because now that this is affecting my family, like I'm going to just put my head down and I'm going to make this happen. And I think that's kind of what happened then, right? It's like we had been
Mhm.
doing the business for just a couple years. And for people who don't know, so we started off in an MLM, right? So we started off in an MLM. We lost weight. I think I lost 100 pounds. I think you lost what, 30, 35 pounds. We started to feel great, got to spend more time with our family. And since then, we've made some different transitions because guys, I'm sure anybody who has a business knows that the way that you think that it's going to end is never the way that it actually ends, but it's supposed to be that way. It's actually supposed to be that way if you're willing to evolve and not just force it, right? But as we were doing that, we were like, you know what, we are going to do whatever we could to make this happen because I honestly took like responsibility myself. I was like, this is my fault. Like if I had been able to grow this business and I wasn't just like lollygagging around like pretending that I was kind of working, even though I wasn't working as much as I actually could, I kind of took responsibility for that. And I'm like, okay, we've got to make a change here. And so that's when things started to change. We started to put energy and effort. Our business started to get better. And then we tweaked it. And then we evolved. And then I started a life coach certification with my mentor, Josh Coates. And these things like happened to get to the point where Teresa could leave her job. Now, Teresa, can you go into real quick before we get into these 10 things? I really want people to kind of like get a feeling for this. So when you actually left your job, all right. So when you left your full time UCLA, you're working at the hospital administration, you're making over six figures, and you left your job. Like I know we have all of these things that we're going to go into, those 10 things you wish you had known, right? But is there something that happened that you didn't even realize was going to happen? That you're like, wow, I didn't even know this was going to happen when I left my job. That was, maybe something outside of the 10 things we talked about, something that you were like, man, I really want people to know that when they leave their job, this is going to happen to them.
Yeah, I think one thing is this whole identity thing that
Mm,
happens. So it's not that I was like so passionate about my work, right? I mean, it was still a job. Like I really loved what I did, right? And I think like the stuff that I was working on, I really made a difference. But I think the identity came where it was like I always thought of myself as a career driven woman. Like I really wanted to like climb that corporate ladder. And then, but things changed, and obviously for amazing reasons. Like we have two beautiful children, but when it was kind of like, wait a minute, like this is weird. Like I don't feel right. I almost felt like there was something missing because like this had been my life. Like I was the working mom, or I was this woman who was climbing the corporate ladder, and then all of a sudden I was like, I'm home, you know. So
mhm.
it was like it was this like weird transition, weird kind of like mindset shift that I had to go through, that actually took quite a bit to
Hmm.
get through.
Yeah. And like I'm thinking about this for myself too, because in February I'm going to leave. my career. And I know that because just like you, like my identity is kind of like wrapped up into police work. And it's not like how it was in the beginning, because for the first 8 or 9 years when I was screwing it all up in terms of my family and my health and all those things, like I felt like I was a police officer first, even before I was a human. It was like kind of weird. I like took on this weird persona, and then I've since been able to detach from that. But I also know that on February 2nd, when I turn in all my stuff and I'm no longer a police officer, I know that I'm going to go through that too. And I'm just glad that we're having this conversation, because people who are going through or going to experience this, they need to know this about this beforehand, right? So here's the thing. We're going to get into these 10 things right now. I do want to say one piece though. First off, thank you guys for anybody who's making this live, anybody who's watching the replay. We greatly appreciate you for being here. We know we're going to give you guys a ton of value, but I want to make you aware of something real quick. So for the rest of December, on Saturdays, we are going to be putting together workshops leading up to the new year. And here's the reason why. Whether it's, you do want to leave your job, like we're going to be talking about here today, or you have a goal that you've like been trying to hit for like 47 years in a row and you haven't been able to hit it, and you're like trying to plan for 2023 being your epic year, being that year that is like helps you make a significant change in your life, we're going to actually prepare you before January. So many people are like waiting for January to hit, but here's the thing. For you guys, I want to make sure that you are ready to go, so that on January, you're already down out of the starting block. You're already good to go. All right. So that's what we're going to be doing. So every 8 a.m. Saturdays for the next next 4 Saturdays, we're going to be live here on YouTube, giving you a strategy, a plan, a system, something to follow to help you be prepared for next year so you can totally blow it out of the water. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the bell notification. That's what Mr. Beast told me to say. And so that way you get notified whenever we're about to go live. Of course, the replays will be here, but the way that we typically do it is a workshop style, where being live is kind of like an important piece of that, because as we go, we want you guys to shoot us some comments back and forth so we can really help you, okay? Now, this one's going to be a little bit different because we do have these 10 things, okay? So let's get into this, all right? So first off, thank you very much for sharing your story, Teresa. I appreciate that. We didn't even know we were going to be talking about that time with Alyssa and the preschool stuff. But like anytime that you remind me of that, it just fuels my passion again, right? We're probably going to be talking about this a little bit, head versus heart, right? And what really like gets you to fuel yourself. So let's dive into this. So we have 10 things you absolutely need to know. Now, for those, you guys hopefully aren't watching it. You probably don't have a camera in our house. So Teresa and we had to really like try to narrow this down, because there's so many things that we literally want to be able to tell you, that we want to make sure that you know, that you understand. So that way you don't have to worry about it, and you can like literally just go about your day, hit your goals, and be able to leave your job, be able to like feel secure in what it is that you're doing. But we had to narrow it down. So I'm going to share 5 and Teresa's going to share 5, and we're probably going to go back and forth with each other. But we want to dive into the first one right now. So Teresa, you want to start us off? What is one of the 10 things that people absolutely need to know before they leave their job?
To develop a structure for yourself, a routine, and just be organized when, you're going to leave your job. And I mean, like when you actually are no longer working at a job, like let's say, you're leaving your job for a business, you want to structure your day as if you are going into a 9 to 5. Now it's going to be tweaked a little bit because, hey, you have more freedom. You're going to be able to do things differently. However, what I found was that I got a little bit stir crazy and just felt disorganized because I didn't have like set working hours. I didn't set boundaries for myself and for others. So having a routine or a structure, have set work hours so that first off, you'll be more focused, because when you are at home, like let's say you're going to have a home business, and I'm not assuming anything, like I want to make sure that like I'm just not like speaking to people who are specifically leaving their job to have like a home business, but however you're going to do it, you still want to have some structure, because it's going to help you be more focused, and you're going to be able to shut things off, meaning that you're going to have, if you're going to have your business, you want to make sure that you have some type of harmony where you're not just like blending everything in. you still have some boundaries where if you're working, you're working. If you have, home life, you're spending time with your kids, spending time with your spouse, or doing other things, you want to have those boundaries set in place. So I think structure is super important.
I love that. I love that. And I think like when obviously when you're plugging into a job, when you're plugging into a career, like you have that structure in place, right? You have a boss, you have somebody who's above you, who's telling you, hey, you got to do this. This is the time you start your work. This is the time you take off of work. This is when you take your breaks, right? And I think like what people don't understand is like it feels great, most likely, that you're going to have like this freedom. But also, you got to put some structure around that freedom, or that freedom, you're just not going to do anything, right? You're going to be either in the weeds, or the opposite could happen too, where you're literally working 24/7 and you're not giving time for your sleep. You're not giving time for your recovery. You're not giving time for your family, right? So I know for me personally, considering I have OCD, and Teresa knows this, I schedule out everything. She likes to make fun of me because she's like, I have to schedule out being spontaneous. I got to like write on the calendar, like I got to be spontaneous between this time and this time. So this is one of those things where it's kind of like my strength zone, planning it out. But if you're just going to wing it, make sure that you write it out. And as a matter of fact, now that I think about this, like you could even practice now. How about if you actually practice on one of your days off? Pretend like, hey, now I'm full time right now and I'm working my business or doing whatever, and then just practice it, like write it out. See what the schedule is going to look like, how many hours you're going to be working. And then also don't forget to plan out your free time and the time that you're not going to do anything and the time you're just going to play video games if you're me, right? Or the time where you're just going to like, I don't know, redesign the garage for the 50th time if you're Teresa. Like whatever that thing is for you, it's like that's not only your zone of genius, but that will allow you to recharge so that the next day you can get back to work, right? Because if like, imagine this, what if you lived where you work right now? Can you imagine that? Like you would never be kind of disconnected. You would be around that all the time. And that's kind of like what happens when you have a business, right? You live here, you eat here, you have kids here, you sleep here, you do all these things here, right? And so that probably means you should probably go out, right? Which is why I always love to go to the coffee shop, right? Even if we're just working, because I want to disconnect from that location. So I love that one, all right? So number one is routine. All right, so I'm going to pop into number two.
There's one more thing before you move on. Just thinking about like, it could be like a different dynamic where maybe someone's not completely leaving their job. Maybe they're going part-time and then they're going to have their business. So, that's even more important because you're going to there's more on your plate, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, structure. Okay, number one for me is find your squad. Find your squad. Here's what I mean. Is like if you have a group of people that you're hanging out with in your career or in your job, and you're not hanging out with other people who have businesses, other people who have left their business, other people who like their main source of income is coming from that, it's very easy to just get stuck in, those people that you hang around with. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them, but you have to find people that number one will support you in your business, but number two will push you to grow. You don't want somebody who's just going to support you no matter what it is you do and not push you to grow and just say, you know what, just take it easy today. It's okay. You worked hard yesterday. You want somebody who's going to be compassionate with you, but at the same time, you want them to push you because you need to be pushed when it comes to having a business, when it comes to like, that's your main source of income, right? So you've got to make sure that you find your right people. For me, one of my right people, he's on here right now, and that's Kurt, because I know that he's constantly going to push, he's going to grow, he's going to learn, he's going to figure out what do I need to do to become better. And if I'm doing that and I'm surrounding myself with other people like Kurt, other people like Josh, other people like Teresa, other people like Tina and Amanda and Annie and Michelle, like if I hang out with those people, I'm naturally going to start to push myself and I'm just going to raise up not only my expectations, but my activity level and also continue to grow. And so make sure that if you are doing that, if you are like, going to disconnect from your career, your work, that you do connect and find your squad. The squad who's going to be there to support you, to push you, to keep you growing. There's this thing that Josh taught me a long time ago, and it's called the 3 levels of reach. I want to go over it real quick with you guys, okay? So what the 3 levels of reach says is as a leader, we have to constantly be reaching in 3 directions, okay? The first direction is down. And as we reach down, we lift people up. We take them under our wings. We help them. We help develop them. But if we're constantly there trying to help them, and they say that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? That's what Jim Rohn says. And if you're constantly reaching down all the time, no wonder why, like you're not consistent or you're not motivated or you're not excited or you just get pulled down. It's a natural part of being a human being. That's why there's two other levels of reach. Number one is to the side. It's like other people who are in maybe like a similar area than you, similar level of growth, similar like expectations, similar like wanting to, I don't know, become better in a specific area. And you're on that level so you can speak to them. And it's a little different than when you're talking to them versus talking to people who are, and I don't want to say below you, because a lot of people, when I say reaching down, they think that I'm talking about like reaching down to like lower level humans. Guys, nobody's a lower level human. These are all humans. They're at different levels. Guess what? A lot of people had to reach down to me to get me to come up to where I am today. And if I didn't have them in my life, if Josh wasn't there to reach down and grab onto me, I wouldn't be here right now. Okay. So I'm not saying that there's anything going on or there's anything bad about reaching down. I'm saying you reach down to help people in a specific area that you've been able to overcome. You've been able to get through. You were maybe struggling with and you found the solution. So you reach down to help them and lift them up, right? But if you're doing that 95% of the time, your energy, your mindset, really your thoughts are literally going to become congruent with the people that you're lifting up. And that's why when you reach out, it's just a different level of energy, right? You can share things with them that you can't share by reaching down. But there's another level. And I think like people really forget this, and that's reaching up. You've got to constantly be growing. You got to constantly find a mentor, finding a way of continuing to get better. Somebody who has that thing that you're looking to achieve. And that person can change. It can change from them to them to them. It doesn't matter as long as you're reaching up. So these three levels are critically important. So when I say find your squad, what I'm talking about is reaching out and reaching up. I know you guys are leaders. Like literally businesses are here to help people solve massive problems in their life, right? Can't tell you how many times I've been on a coaching call and I asked somebody like, what is important or meaningful to you about your business and what you do for people? And they literally start tearing up and crying because the impact that they get to make in people's lives. But if all we're doing is reaching down and we're not reaching up and reaching to the side, we will do what's called burnout, all right? So if you've ever experienced that, get to reaching out and reaching up. So that's why I say, find your squad. And don't do that and wait until you retire or leave or do whatever. Find them as soon as possible. Because the quicker you do that, the more you're going to feel like it's just normal for you doing the things you're doing. Because if you keep hanging out with people who don't have businesses, people who don't value that stuff. I mean, just like me, if I'm trying to get healthy and I'm hanging out with other people who don't value their health, I'm naturally going to start not valuing my health because I'm hanging out with them. All right. So we got to make sure that we really take charge of this and we make sure we find our squad. All right. So that was my number one. Anything on that?
That. No, I love it.
Okay, go for it. What do you got for number two?
So number two for me is don't burn bridges. So like if you're going to leave your job, I mean, everybody has different reasons for leaving their job, right? But even if you think you're never ever going to come back, like don't think that, right? Like you never ever know. And I think that sometimes, people forget the power of networking and knowing, having like a group of people to be able to reach out to connect with. So, don't burn bridges when you leave your job, because you just never know. I think that it's something that sometimes people make a mistake with, and like you never know. You might meet somebody, or you might just want to learn something from someone. So I think that that's really important to understand.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember I was listening to a Ed Milet podcast and he says, you're most qualified to help the type of person that you used to be. And a lot of times where we used to work, there's a lot of people of where we used to be. And it just gives you a great opportunity to reach back out, to help, to do whatever you possibly can to really help them out. I remember Josh told me this once, because I was really trying to help a lot of police officers. And what I realized is like at that time, it was very difficult for me to be able to help them and to be able to support my family. So he said, you know what? Why don't you find a way that you can help some people, a ton of people, and make a significant income so you can actually help police officers for free? And I'm like, let's do that. And I'm all in. And so I'm definitely going to be able to keep that out. Now that's a great idea, is like always making sure that you don't burn your bridges, because you never know what's going to happen. I don't know. We weren't going to talk about this, but do you want to talk about that? Like, remember when we got to a point where we're like, I don't know, is this working out? Like, are we going to have to like really like, her boss's name was Paul. Are we going to have to reach out to Paul and talk to him? And do you remember going through that?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't think that's one of the things that we were talking about, but I think it's really important to address is that you never know, you might need to go back to your 9 to 5 or, go somewhere else. And, things don't always work out the way, in fact, they never work out the way that you plan.
Yeah.
It's always good to have a plan, but they never work out exactly how you plan it. So there were at least 2 times when we had to sit down and be serious and say, do I have to reach back out to my boss? And because I always knew, like, I had a great relationship with, my past employer, and I knew that if it came down to it, like, I can, reach back out. And obviously, we didn't want to go that route. We didn't want to do that, but we also, we were struggling at times, and we had to have that conversation. So, and it's okay, right?
Mhm.
It's okay. Like I said, it's not always going to work out the way that you plan. Thankfully for us, it has worked out, but we did have those conversations at least two or twice.
Yeah. And I think they were important conversations because they reignited me. Because here's the thing, like when you say you're going to do something, that's great for like maybe a month or two, but then it kind of like that novelty kind of wears off, right? So I remember
Mhm.
like even thinking about that. And basically it got me to like go all in again. And I did that several different times. And it didn't work out, like you said, the way that we thought it was going to. As a matter of fact, it worked out better, right? I actually like what I do
Mhm.
better like now than ever before. So I love that. Okay. So don't burn bridges. All right. The next one for me is don't quit a job that you hate to start a business where you actually have a job again that you hate. Here's what I mean
Mhm.
is like a lot of times people run from their job so they can start a business. And literally what they do is they create another business that they hate and it's a 24/7 business. So they leave a business that pays them well and they come over here, they start a business that they absolutely hate doing and they work 24/7 and they don't make as much money as they do over here. So don't do that. And what I mean by this is like when it comes to like actually leaving and having a business that you're actually wanting to like develop and want to put your time and energy into, make sure it's something you actually love to do. Guys, this is going to get hard. It's going to get hard for me. I know it, but it's going to get hard no matter what. It's just the nature of the beast. When you leave something that is, and here's the thing, people say it's secure. You never know if it's actually secure. All right. A W-2 job is not really secure, as secure as we all would think, right? And when we leave something like that, it gives us this false sense of like, oh my God, like what's going to, and sometimes we try and rush it and start something that we actually won't enjoy. So you're going to have to push through those times when things get difficult, and having something you absolutely love to do while you're also making a huge impact in people's lives is going to give you that heart voice to kind of like push you through those times. So don't quit a job to start another job and call it a business. All right. But in reality, you're going to be the CEO. I mean, this is something that I talk about a lot on this channel, right? We're modern leaders. We see things differently. If you're a CEO, you're not going to be doing the same things that an employee is going to be doing. And so if you leave your job, this is a bonus tip, all right? You leave your job and then you bring the employee mindset into your business, you're not going to succeed or go very far because you're going to be doing all the work, you're going to be taking all the actions, and you're not going to be looking at it from the bird's eye view, which is what you need to do as the actual CEO and the business owner. Yeah, you might have to get in there and do a couple things in the beginning if you're just a solopreneur, but I would highly suggest that you find some amazing teammates. And no, Kurt and Ice is already taken, but find some people that can actually go out there to help you with your mission, who are great at doing those things that you suck at, or maybe the things that you don't like, because it's really going to like just affect you forever when you look at it from the CEO, the business owner mindset versus looking at it just from the employee. So that was my number two.
Yeah, and a
Don't
little
quit your
bit of
job to have another
a little
job.
bit of a side note on that, something similar, is let's say that you're not happy with your job, and one of the main reasons why you're leaving is because you're unhappy or you hate your boss or there's something going on there, some type of emotion that this job, um, you know, is contributing to that you don't like. And then you leave that and you're like, everything's going to be great. I'm going to be so happy. But then it's not. And it's simply because, or not simply, but it could be that it's because there was some type of emotion that you had when you had this job that you just brought along
Mhm.
with you that you didn't really process, that while that was happening. And obviously, like, that's not always clear for people. And I think that as life coaches, like, that's something that we think about, where it's this emotion that just haven't processed, where it could be that if you actually did process it, that you wouldn't really want to leave your job. So, I mean, that's getting in a little bit of a different tangent, but kind of think about that sometimes too. Like, what's the real reason you're leaving your job? Like, is it just a feeling that you have that you're just like, I'm just not happy here. I'm going to be happy over here. But what if that's not the case?
Actually, can I add something to that? Because Teresa just went master
Hmm.
coach style on you guys. All right. She's talking about
Yeah.
processing pain. So many times what people do is they run from pain, and they don't process it. This could be for a job, but it also can be for your significant other. It could be you decide that, and people who've had multiple, like, let's say, multiple spouses or multiple significant others, and they seem to like keep bringing the things into the next thing, into the next thing, and the next thing. Have you ever like thought to wonder, like, maybe it's me? Maybe it's the pain and the ideas and the thoughts that I'm bringing into this situation, because it's powerful. What you don't realize is these thoughts, what you have going on in here, if you don't actually process it and then make a decision if you should leave your job or not leave your job, like, you're going to be taking that thing, that baggage with you. It's really called limiting beliefs, right? And it's called self-sabotage, honestly, is like you literally can take this from one situation to the next. So I'm glad you brought that. That is like a really good reason to find a life coach, because sometimes you don't even realize that you have those pains, you have those limiting beliefs, and you're literally bringing them from here to here. If you think that you're going to leave a job that is like requiring you to do at work or whatever, and like just immediately leaving the job is going to make you happy, you haven't really processed that pain, really processed the fact of it's not the job that's making you unhappy. It's your thoughts in here that are making you unhappy about what somebody else is doing. Somebody else can't make you feel a certain way. Instead, what you do is you process it. You go, oh, okay, I understand now why I'm feeling this way. And it's not having to do with them. It has to do with my thought process. Oh, and also, I want to leave my job because I don't want somebody to treat me like that. That is processing it and then taking those steps, and you will leave that junk wherever it is you left it. So it's a really important thing, is like, if you are going through something like that and you want to process pain, find a life coach. Find somebody who's a master coach who can really get to the bottom of that, who will really be able to help you. Great one. Okay, going to the next one. Number 3.
Yeah, so this one is about money.
Mm,
And I could take this in a bunch of different directions, but I think I wanted to talk uh, talk about this in the sense of being able to spend money on yourself, like development, not being afraid to do.
mm,
I know that, like, maybe when you leave your job and you start your business, or you're in the process of, you're already in your business, but and maybe it's not gaining as much traction right now. Um, your thought might be, I need to hold on to the money that I have right now, and I need to really make this work, but like, I'm not going to spend the money on, you know, a coach, or I'm not going to spend the money on a course, or I'm not going to spend the money, whatever, you name it, right? But in reality, yes, it's hard sometimes when you're not seeing the money come in that you would really want. Um, but even if it's a little bit, like, invest in something that will help you grow your business. And the best thing that you can invest in is yourself.
mm-hmm.
So growing, I mean, even reading a book, start reading books. I mean, there's so many books that we have read that have taught us, not only like tactics, not only just strategies to help us specifically with our business, but it's helped us with our mindset. I think one of the best investments that we've made started off really, really small, and that was audiobooks and physical books, and just
Mm-hmm.
reading those, because those were life changing, and then they just helped us move on and create momentum and progress.
I love that. I'm going to put something in the comments right now. It says, your hour success is a reflection of your inner growth. Once
Hmm.
again, Josh like leaned and pulled me up on this one too. Like, when you are trying to develop a business, your business is a reflection of your inner growth. It's like your personal growth. The more that you develop, the more that you grow, the more that you're capable of, the more skills you learn, the more confidence you have, the more that that's going to flow through your business. All right. Now, I'm not saying this in a way to shame or guilt or humiliate you because of where you're at right now. Sometimes it takes a little while to catch up. I know for me personally, I was coaching a lot of coaching, and I really hadn't developed the skill of life coaching. I was at the time a health coach, and I didn't really know the idea of how do I life coach people. And so I decided to, at the time, it was $21,000 to invest in how to become a life coach. Thankfully, it's not as expensive now because I have my own life coach school with Josh that we charge like not even half as much. But really being able to develop and do that, like when I did that, I actually in 1 year 5x my income because of that. Because I was willing to like develop myself. And yes, it took many, many years to learn the skills of just regular coaching. And then it took me like 6 months to learn the skill of life coaching. And that was just the beginning. Then it was like, then I had to coach my face off just to get more comfortable with it and learn like the different directions that I could help people with. But that was the thing. It was like if you are leaving your job and you have this scarcity mindset around money, which is kind of like what I think you're talking about. You have this scarcity around money, you are not going to attract more money. This is another like skill that we teach inside of our Master Coach program is like the idea of money limiting beliefs. If you think money is bad, if you think money is wrong, if you think that you're taking from somebody else, you're not going to go out there and do that. But in reality, when you are able to like charge something for your program and effectively change their life, and then they go out and their family is changed and the ripple effect in their life, like you don't get that opportunity if you don't ask them to join your program. If you don't ask them to make a sale, like you don't get the opportunity to change their life if you don't ask that. So really like limiting beliefs around money are like a huge deal. And if you're taking that with you and you're like, well, I guess I can't grow for a little while. I guess I can't like invest in anything. I'm sorry, you're going to be going downhill because that's the way that this works. It's your business is a reflection of what's going on in here, how much you are growing. And you're not growing. Let me caveat this. You're not growing because you're scared of what's going to happen if you don't grow. No, you're growing because you're like, I just want to become better. I want to just like literally be able to help as many people as I possibly can. And I know this skill is the thing that I really need to dive into. And if I dive into this, it's going to help develop me into X, Y, and Z. And the more value you can bring the marketplace, the more the marketplace is going to return that value in your bank account. All right. So that was a really, really solid point. My number 3 is kind of similar to that. All right. It's a little bit similar to that. It's finances. All right. So I'm going to go into finances real quick. So this is something that we did the first time. But this time it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more aggressive. And we've met with like an accountant. We've met with like a lot of different people. We've had like a bunch of different tax like conversations. And I want to share some of the biggest takeaways from this. All right. So the first thing is kind of obvious is like removing all the novelties from your budget. So if you have something that you absolutely do not need, especially when you first get started in business, give yourself a little bit by just like removing some of those novelties, all right? Maybe some of those things that take a lot of extra time from you, whatever you can do to kind of like do it, not in a way of like a scarcity mindset, but more of like a security kind of like place of like, hey, you know what? I'm diving into my business. I'm going to be full-time in my business. I want to put forth a lot of effort and energy in the beginning because that's the way that it takes. Like what they talk about is like an airplane to get off the runway, they have to give it like 95, 100% of their energy, right? And then they're just cool sailing the rest of the way, right? You need to put in that energy and effort. So doing that at the beginning is so critically important. Also, things that you want to make sure that you do is you look into like medical and dental and life insurance, all right? Especially if you have a family. Like if you've never been out of the W-2 world, it doesn't work the same. Let me tell you, it is kind of confusing. You need to find somebody who knows what it is they're doing. I know we connect with a farmer's agent. I know we connected with a bunch of different financial advisors, and they gave us different ideas. There's this thing called Cobra that can kick in for 18 months after you leave your job. There's a lot of details there, but really sit down and figure this out. If you don't figure it out, it's going to freak you out at the end because you're going to be like, whoa, are we going to have medical? Are we going to have dental? Are we going to have this? And literally sitting down to plan this out will be a game changer, all right? And the last piece is like get financial planning help, all right? So we have an accountant, we have a financial planner. We literally got off the call. I don't even know what he's called. He's like he's somebody who helps us to make sure that at the end of the year that we actually are able to save as much on taxes as we possibly can. And he was on with our accountant, but they call him something else. I forget exactly what they call him. And it really was the power of like, okay, now that you have a business and you're going all in, there's a lot of things that you can take off your taxes that you couldn't when you have just a W-2. But we want to make sure that you get to keep that money so that you can, guess what he said, reinvest it in the business. You know what that means? Reinvest it in you. If you have a product, then yes, you're going to have to reinvest in the product. But if you are the product, if you're a coach, you are the product, that means investing it back in yourself. Getting higher level coaches, getting into higher level masterminds, and really being able to invest in yourself. Because guess what? that once again is another tax write-off for the next year. It's like this spiral. And as you continue to go and you continue to grow, you're going to be at six figures. You're going to work up to 500,000. You're going to work up to seven figures. And this is the way that it works. As a matter of fact, the government wants you to do that. The government wants you to take that money so you can reinvest it in your business so that you can make $1 million, because the taxes on $1 million are a little different than the taxes on six figures, right? So really being able to reinvest in yourself, but really focusing on your finances, getting a financial advisor. If you need any help, reach out to me. I'm not a professional, but I do have a couple people that I can connect you with. But just find somebody who really knows what they're doing, and make sure it's somebody who understands it in the business realm. Okay, the business realm is way different than the W-2 realm. All right, that was my number 3. Anything on that?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up because those are some of like the little nuances that people don't really talk about,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just like the different different things that you need to think about and start to look at. I mean, even up until this point, we didn't know about, well, we knew about the medical stuff, but there were a couple other things that were like, uh-oh, like we need to set this in motion. We need to find somebody. We need to do all of this stuff because it's the clock is ticking, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So maybe you won't know. There might be some other things that you need to that come up that you're not going to know until the almost the last minute, and that'll be obviously that'll be different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, just kind of understanding that from the get-go will
Mm-hmm.
put you in a really good spot.
Okay, number 4, go for it.
You know what? Number 4, I had already talked about. It was about the emotions and considering why you're leaving your job.
Oh, go into that one a little bit more. What do you mean?
Yeah, it was just the whole thing about processing your emotions before you decide, okay, yes, I do want to leave my job, or no, like this was like not the right reason and I'm gonna stay or whatever. So it's just about considering why you're leaving. And,
Mm-hmm.
if it's because you're just not happy and then you kind of figure out, like, hey, okay, like what's the real reason? Like, let me work through this. And then you're like, okay, I know what the real reason is. I just really want, to have some more freedom, to spend more time with my family, all of that. And it's like, okay, now I'm leaving this all behind and I'm moving on, and this is really what I want to do. So
Okay, and
that was it.
and let's expand a little bit on this. You want to bring in a push method? Sorry, I almost spit. I didn't almost spit. I did spit. I want to let's bring in a push method, because like some people may not
Okay.
understand what we're talking about. They might be like, "Well, what do you mean? Like it's not my boss. It's not like I'm
Mm.
it's my job really that's making me unhappy." What do you think if we like pull them through a push method real quick so they can get an understanding of how not only how push coaches work, but really how life coaches work, where they can really see what's actually causing that issue? What do you think?
Yeah, okay. So, if you think about it, like let's say, you have this situation where you're about to leave your job or you're thinking about leaving your job, and you think about the reason why you're leaving your job. And then might be a story that you have where it's like, well, I'm just like, I'm not appreciated here. Like the people here just don't, see my worth. And I'm just, I want to leave because they're they don't support me or they don't believe in me or whatever that may be.
Mm-hmm.
They're valid feelings, right? Like that's what you may be feeling. And that's making you feel like angry, right? It makes you feel angry that you don't feel appreciated. So then what you do is you start maybe like lashing out at people, or maybe you're just like, you know what, I'm going to start my own business and just like be my own boss. And then you just start kind of maybe finding like things that you really don't enjoy, but you're like, oh, hey, it's just something that's going to pay the bills. Maybe it's this like crypto thing, or I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what else. Like I see like these really weird things that they always put like a little rocket icon or something. I have no idea. But then you start kind of like, like there's like these weird things that happen that you start to do, and then like it's just like this vicious cycle where you're like, the things that I'm doing right now, like, yeah, they're not going to appreciate me because it's like really like I don't have that maybe buy-in in that job. And it's like because I'm just like angry, I'm lashing out at people, or I just don't feel appreciated. But then let's say you pull from that job but you still don't feel appreciated, maybe by your family, or you still don't feel appreciated because the people that you're trying to sell to, they're just not buying. And
Mhm.
in your mind, your interpretation is that, well, people don't see my worth. I'm just not being appreciated. So basically, you took what you were feeling in your job and you pulled it into your next lifestyle, your own business, right? You didn't actually get through whatever it is that really was going through. And
Mhm.
it was your interpretation. Maybe it's something not related to that at all, but that's how you were feeling. Does that make sense?
It does, and I actually wrote out the push method for you, based off of that. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do is I want to take you through like what a situation could look like, and then a different way that you can actually think about that situation, and that's how you realize that you've actually processed the pain. All right. So we start at the top, which is the facts, which means everybody can agree that this specific thing happened. I made this up because you said, you have this thought of like I'm not appreciated, and then I decided to pull up and make up some facts so that way people can kind of like get an idea. So let's say you do something at work and you do it to what you believe is like a high level. And your boss says, "Hey, thanks for doing your job." He says the words, "Thanks for doing your job." Your interpretation of what he said is now like, "I'm not appreciated." And when you feel like you're not appreciated, what does that make you do? It makes you feel angry. And when you're angry, what do you do at work? You lash out, you get angry, you stop sharing, you stop helping, you stop showing up and doing your work. You start thinking about like how terrible everybody is. You start gossiping, you start doing all those things, and guess what happens? What do you manifest from that? Well, you don't manifest anything positive. You literally aren't appreciated because nobody appreciates for other people to be lashed out to stop taking and pulling like your side or what you need to do at work, putting in the energy and effort to actually make the work perform. And you've made that person's words actually affect your actions and how you're showing up. And what's crazy, and this is what Teresa said, and this is why it's so important, is when you take that situation and you bring it to home, because guess what, guys? I'd love to say that you could separate things from home and work. You can't, because guess what? It's always you. You're in all of those things. You can't separate it. You're going to bring it to home and you're going to start to look at like how your kids don't appreciate you, how your significant other doesn't appreciate you. And then the dishwasher is going to come into play, right? Teresa loves when I talk about the dishwasher. But it's like that's
I
what
should mute
happens.
myself.
But here's the thing. What if the facts are the same, right? So you perform at this kind of like high level and your boss says, "Thanks for doing your job." And then you think, wow, okay, so my boss isn't the greatest boss, but you know what? I'm here to make an impact. And if I can protect the people who are below me by like really performing at my greatest, what kind of behavior am I modeling when I'm showing up anyway, despite the fact I have a terrible boss? I get to be the leader. This is the greatest opportunity I have to actually be a leader in this business or this career or whatever, because he's or she is obviously not doing it. So it's going to be me. What does that make you feel? That makes you feel empowered or unstoppable or in control or taking extreme ownership, right? What do you do when you do that? You show up even better. You put in more energy and effort. You like literally become the boss that you wish you had for everybody else below you. And here's the thing, like you could even do this, like you could be on the same level as everybody, but the energy and effort that you put into this going, this is my greatest ability. I have the best opportunity to shine right now. You might even get a promotion before you leave, right? Because that's the way that it works. And when you are able to like literally see that the outside doesn't change, if you can change what happens on the inside and fuel you to feel a different way, it's going to get you to take action and it's going to get you to show up and manifest that you are leading like a boss. And then guess what you get to do? You can decide if you don't want to work there, but you're not going to be taking that energy with you somewhere else. You're going to leave it with him. You're going to leave it with there, right? And you're going to be able to take whatever energy you want to in the new place. So I really wanted to pull that out just so people had an idea, because if they're not life coaches, they're going to be like, well, what is he talking about? What do you mean they're going to take it from one? This happens all the time, guys. You take it from home, you bring it to work. You take it from work, you bring it to your business. You take it from your business. It's like passing it around everywhere. And instead of processing it, when you process it and go, oh man, I had this interpretation, which is what a story is. It's like a thought or a belief. I had this interpretation of what that thing means. But I that's not helpful for me. How about if I think of a different way, right? We talk about our heart voice. How about if I find it a different way to really like dive in there and actually produce and actually get myself to show up and get myself to feel a certain way, so that way I'm not necessarily running from these emotions, but I'm processing them, going, oh, so that's the way that's the reason why I felt like that, because I made this person's thing mean something about me as a human. It doesn't. It doesn't mean something about me. It doesn't mean something about whatever. It's something to do with them, right? It's always them because it's their interpretation of their push method that they're going through. So thank you for letting us go through that. So, and that was you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was number 4 for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Number 4 for me is also head versus heart. Okay, and here's what I have to say is like, when you make a decision to leave your job, when you make a decision to, if you're like in the police field, you change divisions, you decide to move out, you decide to whatever you're going to do, the one thing you are not allowed to do is talk trash to yourself if like, let's say it doesn't work out the way that you thought it was. If situation changes in the future, if you have new information that gets brought to you, you are not allowed to like come back and say, I should have made a different decision. That is not helpful ever in your entire life. Shaming or guilting yourself, even though it might feel like you deserve it, you absolutely do not, because number 1, you don't show up for yourself. Number 2, you don't show up for others. So you're literally letting everybody down by beating yourself up. Instead, you have to say, you know what? I made a decision today with the information that I had. This was the best decision I could make right now. But guess what? If new information comes out in the future, I could change my mind, but I refuse to beat myself up for any of the decisions that I've made. And when you can come from that level of like, you know what, I'm making a decision with what I have now, and there could be new information that I get in the future, and I can decide to go back to work. I can decide to go a different direction. That's cool, but I can't come back to where I am now and go, man, I really wish that I would have, because that does not do anything but make you feel like crap. And when you feel like crap, go through the push method on that one. You produce crap, and you'll be evidence that there's crap out there, and that'll literally be what you're actually manifesting. So do not beat yourself up. Remember, it's not supposed to work out the way that you think it is, even though it's important to have a plan, because guess what that gets you to do? It gets you to take action, and you cannot improve in action. Let me say that again. You cannot improve in action. You have to take action. And having a plan, saying this is the direction that I'm going, even if you don't know if everything's going to work out, doing it anyway, that's going to show you like where that path is. You're going to take a few different steps out onto like you're trying to make the path for you, and then you're going to see off to the side, oh, there's another path. Maybe I should take that one. But if you hadn't taken that first step into the jungle, you would have never been able to see that. So I don't know why I got into the jungle now. Maybe it's because that
it was documentary.
that documentary that we saw. That was from Brazil. That one was pretty crazy on Disney. Okay. All right. So you want to go into number 5 for you?
Yeah. I mean, number 5 is basically just have a plan. Mm-hmm. Have a plan. Some people will just not have plans. They're just like, I'm just leaving, and I'm just gonna go and see what happens. Sometimes I guess it does work out, if you're lucky, but having a plan is obviously super important, and shouldn't be something underestimated.
I love that. And I don't know why this kind of like popped into my head, but guys, there's a lot of people out there who have incredible businesses that you could actually help, that you could team up with. So here's the thing, like when I was thinking about this process of like leaving my job at the time, I wasn't connected to Josh. I had been reached out to with 2 different people. Number 1 is the guys at the Data Edge Alliance. I started to work with them to really help them teach in their mastermind. And then the people from my life coach school, I went to Brooke Castillo's life coach school. They reached out to me and they said, hey, would you like to be an instructor for the school? This gives you like the ability of actually, while you're building your thing, actually being able to help out other people in the process. Now, at the same time, Josh reached out to me and said, hey, what would you think about starting our own school? And I'm like, hell yeah, let me choose option number C. I want to go all in with Josh. And it was a really great idea. And the reason why I did that is because of the leadership that Josh shows me. And I'm just like really congruent with his message and just the type of human he is. I'm like, I'll follow you anywhere, right? And so I knew that that was the best fit for me at that time. But really knowing that like, even if you don't go all in just with your business, you can actually help other people who've created a business like yours. Somebody who maybe needs some help teaching, needs some help training, and really like just asking, put yourself in an environment to actually make that a possibility, right? Because it doesn't just have to be ending with you. And this is what a plan can look like. Your plan can be like, hey, I'm going to reach out to Larry. Hey, I'm going to reach out to this person. Hey, I'm going to do this. If this doesn't work, I'm going to do a lemonade stand. I don't know. Just like write whatever it comes into your mind, because you never know like which one of those ideas. Yeah. Well, one of those ideas are going to like be like, oh, hey, maybe this is the one that I'm going to do. Right. So definitely write out those ideas. All right. My last one is work through it in advance. Work through it in advance. Here's what I mean. The stuff is going to get ugly. And when I say stuff, you know what I mean, but YouTube is going to ban me if I say something else. It's going to get ugly. And I want to let you know that you do not have to let your your like business impact the other areas of your life. You can actually plan for those things for happening. One of the things that we always do whenever we're like helping people like build goals, and I will help you guys if you're here watching this and you're subscribed to the channel. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking a lot about goal setting and how to actually accomplish those goals. But one of the things that I always do is I ask people like, what are some of the things that you know are going to come up in this process, and how can we plan and prepare for them right now? So maybe you're going to have somebody come forward who's going to say it's not going to be possible for you. Maybe you're going to get banned on Facebook. I don't know. Maybe like something else is going to happen. And if you have some of those things worked out, like I would write out like what are 2 or 3 of the biggest things that could happen, right? What if like your kids get sick on a day when you're going to give a presentation to like 1,500 people? Do you have a backup plan? Is somebody going to watch the kids? Like, do you have that kind of like worked out? What are some of the things that could go wrong? And how could you put things into a plan right now? Because I guarantee you that it's going to not go the way that you thought it was. But in reality, that's the way exactly that it was supposed to be. And at least that's the thought that I have in here that always really serves me is like, this happened. I don't like that it happened, but it happened for a reason. And now I'm going to get in there. I'm going to lean in. I'm going to take ownership. And I'm going to see what I can do from here. All right. So work through things in advance. All right. What do you got? Anything else?
No, that's it. Sorry, I had to mute because the dishwasher is going
Yeah.
on.
Guys, I put the dishwasher on right before we do a YouTube live.
I'm like,
and
wait, why is it like super loud? It's going to be horrible.
It's all good. It's all good. Okay. For those of you guys, well, first off, I appreciate you guys for being here. I'm going to put up a video after this. There's one that we did, that Teresa and I did, where we talked about like literally just getting your time under control. If you have not gotten your time under control, like maybe you've like heard what we've talked about here today, how we look at things differently, how we look at through things, not only through our leadership lens, but through our coaching lens. We literally took people through an incredible workshop on how leaders look at time differently. If you're planning on leaving your job, you need to go through that workshop. I will leave it up for you here on the screen. I greatly appreciate you guys for being here, for totally rocking this. And I want to say that I'm proud of you for being the leader that you are literally meant to be. Like literally people out there, and I said literally like 4 times, people need you now more than ever. Your business solves a huge freaking problem. When you can like go all in with that, you're only going to make a more massive impact. And when you do that, like literally, not only are you going to enjoy what you're doing, you're going to be changing people's lives, but they're going to pay you to do so. So I appreciate you for doing that, especially in the beginning when it's not so fun, when you've got to do some of those things that maybe you don't love to do, but I believe in you. I know that you're capable of this. Please keep leading from the front, and we will see you guys